Hello guys, welcome to another section of control data. My name is Michael-Martins and we'll be looking into school gradebook project using Microsoft Excel. These are our objectives for the project. So first, we have to analyze the student performance across multiple subjects. From the provided data sets, we have to calculate the total score for each subject. Then we have to grade the student using the ABC formatting. Also, we have to determine the percentage for each student, calculate the average, maximum, and minimum score for each subject. Then finally, we have to create a chart for the student's performance level. For this project, please take note that it is still a basic project for beginners. Alright, so this is the provided data set. This is what it actually looked like, and we have to actually work using this data set. So this is the first name, and we have CA1, CA2, and the exam. So from the provided data set, there are 3 different tests that was carried out for each student. So I want to believe this first one is the first continuous assessment. This is the second continuous assessment, and there is an examination. And also the first continuous assessment has a base score of 20, the second one has a base score of 20, the third one has a base score of 60, so which brings about a total of 100. So first, let's determine the complete score of each student. Alright, so for us to be on the safer side, please, I would want to do this so we can always work faster. Alright, so me doing that simply means I'm trying to highlight everything, and to ensure that instead of me doing it one after the other, let me do it at the same time. Okay, so that being said, okay, the only reason why that is like that is because of what's below here. So below the data set, we have the grading. So which simply means for the A grade, it's for any student that has 80 and above. A B grading is for a student between 70 and 80. A C grading we have between 60 and 50. A D grading we have between 50 and 40. Then the F grading is typically 40 below. Alright, so we are going to be working with these as well. How many students do we have here? So the only way I can determine this is for me to highlight all of the students, and the number of students we're actually working with is 24. We can actually see that right here below. So the number of selected cells that contains data is 24. Okay, so we are having 24 students in which we need to look into their performance level. Alright, that being said, all I just need to do right now is, let's insert a row here. So I'm going to be inserting one row here for the total. Okay, so what I did there was I hold on to my control button, and I am selecting each column. Then right now I'm going to do a right click and do an insert, so it automatically insert a colon in front of each of the subjects, right? So I can come here and type my total, right? So since we are done with that, I must tell you that whatsoever we are about to do is quite on the simple side. All we are just doing is making use of the sum function, right? Because we just want to calculate the sum of what each student has, right? So for Logan Derrick, uh, his first continuous assessment, he had a 16 over 20. The second one, he has an 11 over 20. Then the third one, he has a 16. So this is basically telling us Logan was actually doing well at first. Then all of a sudden, prior to the exam, he wasn't actually getting his grades. So we are going to be doing a cumulative. We are going to be doing a sum for this. So all I'll just do is highlight the cell range, come right here and click AutoSum. So these automatically provide a sum function. Okay, so it's a simplest way of just doing a sum instead of me intending to come up with, okay, saying equal, right? Okay, let me select my cell. So equal, then a sum, then I now select this range, right? Then I close it and I click enter. So we are still doing the same thing, right? So I just made it quite a little bit easier. So now I'm about to do what's called a flash fill or an auto fill, right? I'll just bring in my cursor right to this edge point here and double click. Boom, that's done, right? Okay, so I can do the same here too. AutoSum, select the cell, flash fill, double click, boom. Do the same here. So we need to find a way to identify everything right here is all numbers, right? And it's looking quite a little bit clumsy. Will you be able to tell which is which? Okay, so I want to do a little bit of formatting right here to bring all these to a little bit, to bring it quite closer. Okay, so I'm going to format these cells here, make it bold, right? Once that is done, select the cells, then I come over here where we have orientation. So I'm just going to play around with this here and rotate text up. Okay, so I'm doing this to be able to have a very good view. Then I want to select each of these cells, the total cells, right? It may look like much of a work, but just for identification purposes. And I'm going to select the font color and make it red, right? Okay, so each student now have their score, but how can we tell a student that has actually done well from that which has not been done well if we are to present this data, if we are to present this data set to our manager, our boss? Okay, so from here I'm going to be doing what is called, I'm going to be making use of what is called a conditional formatting. Okay, so this is basically to put a condition on each of the scores, indicating was actually able to do well or not do well with an identifier basically. So right now it's going to be quite difficult for you to just strain your eyes looking for, oh, who did well and who did not do well. All right, so I'll just come here, select this column, come here, and these are different options, right? So we have the highlight cell rules using the greater than or less than or between. Okay, then we also have the top bottom rules. We have the data bar. So probably if I'm to use the data bar, you can automatically see that the cell the each cell has been selected based on a data bar, right? But I'm not using this. I want to use the icon sets. Okay, and I'm going to be making use of this, right? Okay, so this is a directional option. Okay, so here it's going to be easy to say, oh, this is red, this is green. All right, this is in between for each of the student, right? So compared to me looking at each of the numbers in a row and looking for who actually did well and who did not do well. So this is going to be at a glance, right? You can see we've seen 88, 73, 72, and now it's easy to identify who have this 88. Okay, so Natasha Lin did very well in mathematics. All right, so let's do these for other subjects. So I'll just come here. Okay, so now let's try to be a little bit efficient in this. All I just need to do is select the colon, press my control button, select these, select these, select these, select this, and finally this. Now please take note that these might not come in effective in some other dataset cases, so you need to be aware of what you're actually doing. So I can now come to my conditional formatting option, scroll down straight to icon sets, and select this directional option, right? So boom, I've been able to make it more visible, the total of each of the student, right? So we can easily see from this point of view, it's looking like there is more yellow than there is more of green. So the next thing we'll be doing is grade the student using the ABC format, right? To do this, I will need to minimize this first, then I'll come here, copy this cell range, select this cell option, and paste. Okay, so now to give each student each grade, we'll be using what is called the if statement, right? The if statement, or a function, will allow you to return different values based on whether the given condition is true or false. Alright, so let's take a look on how it actually looks, right? If I select this cell, for every function or formula in which we want to use in an Excel sheet, within the active cell, we start with an equal sign, right? Then the if, open bracket. So here we could see the syntax that say that the logical test, the true value, right? The value if it is true, then the value if it is false. So in this case, what are we actually looking at? What we are looking at is we want to determine if log n in mathematics has an A, or B, a C, a D, or an F, right? So if log n score this is greater than or equal to 80, right? 80 and above, okay, then the true value is that we should give Logan an A, right? We should give Logan an A, right? Else, if you did not have it, so what's going to be the false value? It means is having anything below that. So what I do again is I'll write another if statement. If E is having a value greater than or equal to. Now the equal to sign is the greater than or equal to is specifying the range in which the condition should look into. So because if I didn't put equal to, I'm not being specific. So if it is greater than, what's the next option? 70, right? 70. Give him a B, right? What if it does not have up to 70? I write another if, okay? If Logan's score is greater than or equal to 60, 60, give him a C. Okay, so I'll need to look into all these conditions as well. So if again, if the same score is greater than or equal to 50, well, give him a D. So I can't write my D like this. There's going to be an error. So because I'm dealing with text, I'll need to put it in a quotation, which I've been doing all the way, right? So that being said, also if his score is not up to it, then it means it's going for an F, right? So if it's not up to 50, then we say if is this greater than or equal to 40, then give him an F, right? So it is true for this particular if statement, then else still give that person an F, right? So now I can close this bracket. So but I'm closing these brackets only for the very last F, because this is what we call a nested condition. So I'll need to close up for the entire conditions, right? So and that's that. And so since Logan have an F, so all I just need to do is bring my cursor down here and drag down, right? And I can see the score of other students based on these conditions, right? So I'm going to drag it down completely. The next subject is English, right? Then I'll come here, do a Ctrl C, then come to English, do a Ctrl V, then go through this function. Alright, so if you look at this function, you can see that it's actually selecting the CA here, which is not meant to be. It's meant to be selecting, it's actually selecting this CA here, which is not meant to be. It's meant to select this total for English. So I'll just do this, move it down here, right? But there's still an highlight there, right? So what I'll just do is, this cell is what we want to locate, which is J5. So I'll come here, and rewrite this for J5. Rewrite this for J5, 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 right? And press enter. Okay, so now we know what Logan add in English. If he's not doing well in mathematics, apparently he actually put up some effort in English. So can I get all of that? Yes. Okay, so all right, welcome back. So we now have the grading for all the students based on their subjects, right? And this is good to go. So I can format this to look a little bit different. So since we've been able to conclude this, it's quite taxi, but yeah, it's easy. So what's the next thing for us to do is determine the percentage for each student. Okay, so because of this, I'm going to be moving this line like 3 steps. Insert. Okay, so let's work here. So yeah, I'll be doing student performance, right? Okay, all right, so how do I come about student performance? So all I just need to do is I take the sum of all of the subjects, divide by the total sum of all subjects, right? So we are having English, mathematics, chemistry, biology, physics, commerce, and government, right? And each base score of each of the subjects is 100, so which brings us to having 700, right? So this simply means all I just need to do is I'm going to be summing up each of the total score. Okay, so I will have then do a divide by 700, and I have that. And I have this, right? So what I just need to do now is I come to this this number group here, click down and select percent, and it gives me a percentage. So which simply means Logan is actually having a 63% performance in all of his subjects, which is quite fair. So he's not doing well in mathematics does not mean he has not been doing well in other subjects. So if I am to look at his line, if I am to look at this line here, so he didn't do well in mathematics, it's fairly okay in English, fairly okay in chemistry, did well in biology, did well in physics, his commerce is quite poor as well, and his government, he really tried. So I guess this is the reason why he's able to have this particular score, which is fair by me, right? So what next to do? I do a fill, right? Owing to the fact that it's going to be relatively referenced. Okay, so I double click, right? This is our student performance score, right? So that is done. We've determined the percentage for each student, right? So calculate the average, maximum, and minimum score for each subject. And finally, we'll be creating a chart for the student performance level. All right. So this being said, so let's come down here. Let me create space here. I insert. All right. So I'm going to be doing an average, maximum and a minimum, right? So I'm going to bold this. Okay. Let me bring it down a little. It's fine. Okay. So what I want to do is I can start actually from here, which can actually also make me actually understand which student is actually having an average, a maximum, or a minimum. So all I'm using is a function, right? So I'll use the average function and say equal average, right? Then I do the range from C5 to C28, right? And I close bracket and press enter. So this is the average. Okay, so the average score here is 11.83. It's more like in the first continuous assessment, the students are actually not really getting their edge over what the teacher has been teaching over time. Okay, so the maximum score here will now say equal max, right? C5 to C28. Okay, and I close and I press enter. So you actually have someone who did well in mathematics. Oh, so if I'm actually looking at this, I can see Bobby Lawrence with a 20 score, Walker Santos with a 20 score, and Olivia May has an 18. Kimberly Spencer had a 19, but she didn't really do well in her exam, so it must have been pretty tough for her then. Okay, so finally the minimum, I have a mean, open bracket, C5 to C28, and I close bracket, and the minimum score is 5 actually. That's okay. So now that this has been done, to make work a little bit efficient using our relative referencing, I can just do this and continue doing it to this place, right? Okay, so that's that. So but how do I identify which of them is for the total score? So all I would just do is identify it by bolding. I'll bold those codes, right? So like I did earlier, control and I select, right? And I select, then I bold. Okay, so I can actually bold and make it red, right? For identification purpose. So I come here, font color red. Okay, so this is fine. So let me put this and a border. Alright, so we've been able to do that as well. Okay, so finally we now create a chart, right? So let's do a performance chart. So all I need to do is select this cell, select this range, right? Come up here and select insert, right? So the kind of chart I'll be using is a bar chart. So I can actually pick any of these charts here. So there's a chart here, right? So if I click on recommended charts, let's see what it's going to give to me. A bar chart. It's giving me an option for a clustered column, a bar chart, right? So we could actually make use of these. We could actually make it vertically or horizontally, but I'll go for this and say okay, right? And this is fine. Okay, so this is what our chart looks like. Okay, so but there is no major identifier here, and if you look at our y-axis, our vertical axis, the vertical axis is explaining the percentile value of their performance score, while the horizontal axis is just giving me in numbers, and I really do not think I should be having that. So what I'll do is I'll right click here, select data, edit horizontal, then I'll come to the chart here, and I select the first name. Okay, and I click OK. So you can see that it has input all the first name there, right? So from here we can actually determine who has a high percentage. So from this chart we can see that none of them were actually able to get below 50, right? They are not below the average, so it's actually good condition. It's actually fair to say that they are not below 50 or below an average, right? So they all have a score above 50, right? They all have a score above 50, but who actually had the highest score here? Blake, 77%. Blake is having 77% score here. Okay, so let me rename this to student performance level. Okay, come here, increase the frontalism, make it bold, and that's fine. Okay, I like to edit this a little bit. No, I like to edit this a little bit. I'm going to be removing the grid line. So whatsoever I'm doing here is quite optional, and so if we are to look at the trend line, it's quite normal if I should leave this. So this is for a broader analysis option, right? So we don't actually need that. Data table, labeling. So I could decide to use this actually for better so let me use this, right? So if I do that, I'm going to be removing I want to remove the primary vertical line, so because it's going to make my chart look a little bit different. So I will be going with this option, right? I want to remove this decimal lines, right? Okay, so I did that so that it's going to make this one quite readable. Okay. All right, so this is fine, right?